So I got my gear out to have a go fishing, and as I was sorting my bait out, Rob was already on the box. Cheers, Rob. But he started doing something quite interesting. I thought, do you know what? I found that really interesting. I thought it was an interesting thing that you were doing, Rob, and it was you were tapping the pole. Now, you're fishing shallow today with a jigger on there. Talk to me about tapping and slapping and why and when, because I think you see a lot of people like doing what you're doing now, and I think they're just going through the motions, don't you? I think they just think they don't, I don't know if they know, I mean, you can't catch a fish when you're making a noise. So why slap, why tap, and what do you think the benefits are would be very handy for a lot of anglers, I'm saying.
Right, so I feel that fish on commercial fisheries, well, fish on any fishery, you know, even on a big reservoir, we've seen it before with chucking heavy feeders in and different weight feeders, but fish on commercial fisheries, they're tuned into noise. They love noise. Anything that makes a plop on the water surface, they sort of associate with noise. Now, we've seen that with pellet waggler fishing. You get a lot of bites as the pellet waggler lands, and it's all about fishing the bait through the water whilst making the most of that initial attraction of the bait hitting the water surface.
So they're casters that are going in. I mean, I could literally hear the noise, Rob, from all those casters going in.
Yeah,
the
they're
water.
rattling in, aren't they? They're rattling in, and obviously I think, I mean, we've just literally started, and
Yeah, no, just started, literally jumped on my box.
we're trying to gather some fish at the minute. So if we get one, it'll be a miracle, I think, because we've literally just started, and I think it's going to take a while for us to get a bite, but I think it's a nice time to actually do a bit of a demonstration. So, slapping, there's loads of benefits of slapping the rig. Obviously, first of all, you can see I'm making a beautiful noise on the water.
For the most in-depth videos about fishing on the internet, you can become a member at www.anglingedge.co.uk. Sign up today, you get all the new videos and access to all the past videos as well. And you're in luck. You can go on YouTube, The Edge YouTube channel, and now if you love watching your content on YouTube, you can become a member on YouTube instead and watch all the videos from the past and going forward, the best fishing videos on the internet.
Surface.
Yeah, if I go right in close there, yeah, you go two,
So
like you can see the float and the bait clearly
plop, plop.
plopping against each other. Now that's because obviously it's a jigger, so it's actually slid down against the weight itself. So if you had a float on with a bulk halfway, for example, like I think we've got a rig here on my top kit. Let me see if I can find one.
Well, should we swap to that rig and show it?
No, just yeah, okay, can do. Look, effectively there. Look, you got a bulk on your rig, and then a float up here.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to swap to that rig because I think it's important to show that rig because you fish this jigger slightly differently because we're following it down rather than keeping a tight line. So
you might need a new hook length on that rig, mate, from the box.
well, what we've got.
It's got a loop on it, and that's not going to be right for today. So
I'll tell you what we're going to do. It's fishing casters.
you're going to bite it off, aren't you, and just hook the caster. Go for it.
Right.
I need to show the slapping.
So we've got our standard shallow rig. There's another video on our, or there will be, on the YouTube page showing, you know, shallow rigs in depth. So we'll cover that in another video. But this is a standard shallow rig, and what I want to do, this is how I would normally go through. I've just come from 2 days fishing commercial fishery matches where F1s shallow with casters have been the way to go. So the way I would like to, you know, go through the motions of shallow fishing, I get my casters. I've not shipped my pole out yet. Keeping your pole off the water is important because, especially here today, the water's, you know, it's like gin clear the water is here. It's a gravel pit this is, so the water's generally going to be clear. The fish don't like being under your pole tip, that's for sure. So what I'm going to do, with my pole out of the water, I'm going to feed some bait. I'm going to ship out, again, pole at the side, and then I'm going to slap my rig into that bait, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then
we can see 3 slaps there now, Rob.
But what I'm trying to do is hold it tight. Now, there's slapping your rig, and then there's slapping your rig. So this is slapping your rig and holding it tight, right? Yeah. This is not slapping your rig because you're moving your bait away from where it's going in. Likewise, you're not trying to make the float slap. You see there, the hook bait is making slap. I don't even care if the float goes in the water, look, on my initial slaps.
Yeah, you're just looking at that.
I'm trying to
get the fish to come to that
one
plop.
or two fish to come to that plop and start going, what's that little plop? What's that little plop? Must be some more bait. And then I can let it fish on top of it. And hopefully there's one there almost with his mouth out of the water going, where's that bait? Is there a bait there? Is there a bait? When is it going to fall through? And then you can let your rig fish. Slapping is great because it keeps the line tight as well. So if you can see here, if I was to swing this out, especially if there's any wind on the water, it's hard to keep that line tight between your pole tip and your float. You always get that bit of a sag when you slap it out, but by being really positive and slapping it in,
they're almost like completely straightening everything out. I've just seen one.
I've just seen one
there,
board coming. They're on the way.
So this is really important for me, Rob. So why are you not tapping now? Why are you slapping now?
Because on that initial, when I first go out there, the tapping for me is a little bit of it's almost like a last resort. Now, what happens generally is you feed that bait. Now, I've been talking. We'll go through the motions again. We'll do it in another stage. So we'll start again. Halfway, I've put my bait on, halfway out, I'm going to feed a pouch full of bait. So pouch full of bait goes in. And now I'm going to go out, I'm going to slap my rig. It's great because...
How many times?
Right,
How many times are you going to slap
your rig? Here we go. I'm going to probably have 2 spells at slapping my rig. So I'm going to slap it. There's one there, yeah. So I'm slapping it probably
a lot of slaps.
4 or 5 times.
More, yeah, at least 5
4 or 5
6,
times.
Yeah.
Can I get one? Now I'm going to pick up my catapult again. Probably not quite as many casters this time.
Yeah.
Casters have gone in. Now I'm going to go again, because obviously bait falling through the water, another little slap. Hopefully those casters have maybe gathered a couple more fish.
Right.
Then I'm going to feed again.
So are you using feeding in conjunction with your slapping?
With the slapping. Then we're going to slap again, and this will probably be my last slap, because remember, you don't want your pole out there all the time. It's just creating a shadow over the water, especially in this gin clear water. If you don't get one on your first 2 or 3 slaps, it's so difficult to get a fish in your swim. Remember, every time you slap, you're lifting your pole around and you're waving your pole around all over the place.
You are.
So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my float still, and I'm just going to go like this.
And how are you doing that?
Right.
Tell the people how you're doing that.
I'm doing it by it's almost with my shoulder, my right shoulder. Just a little movement, and I'm just sort of pivoting the pole.
What you look like you're doing. You look like you're jigging like your shoulder to a nice beat.
Yes, like we've got a nice beat on.
Going up and down.
What we're saying it is a little bit of Prodigy, something like that.
No, it's not Prodigy, mate. It's more like Bee Gees.
Is it more Bee Gees? Staying alive.
That's exactly what you're on with. That's exactly what you're on with.
There we go. So we've got a nice beat.
And you're literally just and what are you relentlessly doing?
I'm doing a relentless tap. So I'm going to do a little bit of a shake on the surface. Sometimes, especially when you're fishing up against some structure, a single tap is great. Just like a, come on then, and then your pole disappears under the water surface. And I'll tell you what that does. Again, we're making noise on the water surface. Like I say, not loads of fish around at the minute.
No, but it's
we're making noise on the water.
We're
making noise on the water surface, but also it's a flat, calm day. We're breaking the water surface up. So even though my pole is out there causing that shadow, we're breaking the water surface up, and it's giving the fish a little bit of confidence to feed, because we're almost creating a ripple.
You're literally hardly any movement, but to tap,
to
almost put
we're not bashing the pole on the water.
Is there 4 inches of pole going in the water, Max?
Yeah, that's it. We're not bashing the pole on the water.
Yeah.
And quite often, once you've been through your feeding and slapping cycle, the tapping is the way you're going to get your fish.
I always used to find with tapping, Rob, that sometimes I would tap and I would catch 4 in 4 chucks, 3 in 3 chucks.
Yeah.
It's literally elastic out, right?
Yeah.
And then after I caught my 3rd and my 4th one, it was like, every time that tapping takes place, somebody gets caught, so we don't like that anymore.
No, you need to do it in conjunction with feed.
Then you go back to slap, and then you have to change your feed.
Yeah.
So what I think is really important for everybody to remember today is that slapping and feeding and tapping is all really important, but it's about using the right one at the right time to get the best out of your peg. So again, like for me, Rob, I'd be going out there now after my feed and almost be like there and leave my rig, and I'd leave it to hang for like a minute because the water's so clear and you've had less bites. I mean, obviously we were demoing before, but now, because it is clear, and I'd almost just be going, come on then, I've made all my noise. Does one want to come in and there you go, almost like give itself up? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And I also find like 1 or 2 slaps, like you said about 1 tap. Like I often like 1 slap because I almost think the fish sometimes they get used to 3 slaps.
What you
Sometimes
can't
they
do,
get used
Lee,
to 5 slaps.
especially with shallow fishing, especially with shallow fishing, I don't think you can just keep going through the same routine over and over again. I don't think you can do that. I think you've got to be, you know,
So
changing things
You're
up.
going to use all those weapons, aren't you, to try to catch the most
changing
possible.
depths. Look at that perch shallow.
Go on the perch shallow.
Perch shallow.
Beautiful.
So I think you've got to be changing depths all the time.
Yeah.
You've got to be changing your feeding pattern. And you know what? Making noise on the water surface is quite often the way to go, and that is actually one of your feeding patterns.